So I am here with Sam from Shirttail Creek Farm in Brenham, Texas. So how did you get here? What was Sam's life like before farm life?
Yeah, so we had a digital advertising business in Austin. I grew up in the suburbs, so I didn't have a background of being on a farm. And my wife and I had little kids and realized we wanted to raise our kids out of the city and with more of a connection to nature. Yeah. And so we moved out here with no intention of actually having like a commercial farming operation. But over time, we kind of looked at this big investment we had made and said, man, what could we do with this? You know, this is exciting, and started reading about regenerative ag, grass-finished beef, ways of doing that, pasture-raised poultry, and decided to try doing it and go into farmers markets, and here we are. Yeah.
Well, tell us kind of what you got going on here at the farm. Like look at all them looking at us here. Yeah. What kind of cows do we have, and beef, and what can we find here on the farm?
So we grass finish calves here. So we source calves from 2 other farms in our area. They use no hormone, no antibiotic, no grain, and we buy younger calves from them. And we finish them here. And finishing is basically taking the calves, finishing out the phase of growing frame and muscle, and then putting fat on the animals and getting them to a place where they're ready to be butchered. And so we grow forages here for that. Am I going off on a tangent? What'd you ask me?
No, that's okay. What do we have going on here? What kinds of cows?
Yeah.
And then you were saying that you grass finish them.
Yeah. Okay. We run mostly Angus and Brangus cattle here. Okay. So English breed cattle, and some Brangus, which have some Brahman influence, which can be good for heat tolerance down in the south. Okay. And yeah, we grass finish all the cattle, so we grow the forages that our cattle eat most of the year, and we're really hardcore about that.
So is there anyone that's like superior as far as whether it's the Angus beef or whatever in your opinion?
I think all English breed cattle probably have the capability of being pretty good eating beef. A lot of people like to market specific breeds. We go with Angus because it's a breed that's really popular, and it's very good beef.
Cool. And yeah, just to go back onto the grass-fed and grass-finished, a lot of people don't know that, you think, oh, it's grass-fed, grass-finished, and it just stays on one farm, really, where actually, it's news to me that there's a lot of different farms, too, that do have neighboring farms that does grass-fed and then essentially bring them over here to grass-finished.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I find that super interesting.
Yeah. And
then I guess I had mentioned to you earlier, just when we were driving around the farm too, of like mimicking nature. I guess how would you say that, what is that priority on your farm as well too? Just mimicking nature's, like, the natural cycle of life and of foraging, and how does that work here?
That's what it's all about. It's all about farming in the image of a healthy ecosystem. That's what, some people would say that. Some people would say farming in the image of God. Yeah. It's farming in a way that's consistent with the way nature functions. And so that's why it's so important to in our operation, we're a multi-species operation. We've got pastured poultry, pastured pork, pastured grass-finished cattle, and so we've got all these different species rotating on the same pieces of ground throughout the year, and they complement each other. Similarly, in the forages we plant, we encourage competition. We plant grasses, forbs, legumes, root vegetables, and things like that can compete in the pasture. We never spray any chemicals to kill anything. And if there's weeds in the pasture with our grasses, so be it. That's the way nature functions.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I know that, like, actually right now we're going through kind of a difficult time in farming for Texas. We're going through a drought. So how would you try to continue to prioritize that during these challenging times, really?
Yeah, well, with a grass finishing operation in particular, not getting rainfall makes it really tough. And so, as I told you, we've had to truck in alfalfa, beet pulp. We mix a little bit of molasses, and then we feed dry hay. We mix it all together in a feed mixer. And our cattle are doing okay. They're not getting grain. They're not getting cottonseed or soy hulls or urea-based protein supplements or anything like that. But it's tough. So we look at our operation as, maybe we tweak our stocking rates for the future so we can, graze for longer even if there's less rain. And certainly financially, you've got to plan for bake these things into your program because it's going to happen every decade or so.
Yeah, it does come at a cost, especially when the bar is set high for just the vision that you want to create in this farm, just to kind of keep the quality.
Yeah.
Maybe let's talk about closing the distance between the end consumer and our food. Really, again, I know we had some conversations while we were going around the farm about this, but just how people go to the grocery store and they pick up their pound of meat or whatever, and there's a bunch of different steps that are lost in that process as to actually connecting what happens between farm life and then between the end consumer consuming it.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe what are your thoughts on that, as far as, I know that you were not engineer, digital advertising before. So what do you think? How do you think you feel now about the food that you consume personally, being, farmer and and this close, this connected to your food source? How is that the difference between what it was like then and what it's like now?
Then being
how you ate your meals and your meat.
Before I was on the farm.
Prior to the farm.
Yeah, well, I mean, especially since going animal-based, I pretty much eat, aside from the fruit and honey and raw dairy that I buy, I eat what I produce on the farm. That's my diet.
Yeah.
And my eggs and the meat and stuff. And so, I'm super focused on the nutritional quality of the product that we're putting out, because I know a lot of our customers are keen on that too, and as am I. But I mean, shit, I used to go to, like I told you, I used to go to Whole Foods and get some greens and some sort of meat and some rice and think I was doing a good job, 6 years ago, 7 years ago in Austin. And then, you come to start looking at the labels and reading what's in that stuff. And not just Whole Foods, but, any healthy hot bar,
Right.
So I've definitely and I would say being on the farm has just kind of helped us connect with the food and in ways that we hadn't before. Most people grow up with a ribeye just being something on the shelf at the store, and certainly it's not. And we came face to face with that, and when we started the farm, and I think everybody should come to see that from time to time.
So what about as far as consumption wise, when you're actually eating the meat, do you feel a different connection to your food when you sit down for a meal? Do you feel more connected to what's nourishing you? Absolutely.
I'd say that's true with the meat that comes off our farm and the meat that we hunt. You appreciate every bite of that meat. It's it's a critical thing, and there's a lot of food that gets wasted in our world, and I think when you really take a look at how valuable that is to you, and we have a lot of customers that come buy a whole beef or a half beef to put in the freezer because they realize how important it is to have that available to them.
Yeah.
And I think recent events, the freezes, the COVID, whatever, supply chain issues, opened a lot of people's eyes to how fragile that system is that they rely on to get food at the grocery store or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, but I appreciate every morsel.
Farming is crazy and super tough work. So if you could tell people out there, maybe something that you wish that they knew, whether it's a challenge that you're experiencing on the farm that you would like to get the message out or the word out, is there something that you would like to say?
Well, I don't know. I purposefully try not to talk about the woes of running the farm, because it's I came into this with my eyes open. It's my thing to deal with. but yeah, it's got challenges. You know, like right now, obviously we're in a drought. We planted 150 acres for grazing and forage production, and literally nothing grew. I took you out to the pasture. I showed you where we had planted and the no-till had cut and put seed in the ground, and you can still see the perforation in the soil 4 months later, because so yeah, it's not easy, and to produce food in this way. It's also like inefficient, right? Like, I understand why factory farming has become so popular, because it's very efficient, you know, in terms of producing volume, quantity. But when you look at the quality of the product and of the meat you're eating and the eggs you're eating and whatever, you know, you really want animals that are like hormonally healthy, that are getting sunlight, that are, you know, doing the stuff they're supposed to do. So yeah, I mean, truth is, I could like ramble for like an hour about. I'm trying not to do that, because I tend to do that. But
what are some of the positives then from the farm that is something that you feel really good about or grateful, or you know, maybe things you want to share? It's like gratitude for being here and for being a farm owner.
Well, I'm really grateful that I get to be outside in nature every day, and to raise my kids out here. And you know, one thing I noticed, like when we started doing this, I'm so hyper aware of the weather, what plants grow at what time of year, what bugs show up at what time of year, what the weather pattern usually is at certain times of year. I never really gave much of that a thought when I lived in the city. I mean, I know cicadas come out in the summer sometime, and you know, mosquitoes get bad in the summer, but you know, the level of attention we pay to these things out here is, you know, totally different than it was before we lived out here and had that connection. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's nice, kind of just open your eyes, a little more awareness and intention.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your chickens and your hens, the thing that started Shirttail.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I did find you at the farmer's market because it's like, they have corn and soy-free eggs. This is amazing. So really pumped about that, and you don't see that often in the stores. So maybe if you could just tell us a little bit about that process, and then maybe why we don't see corn and soy-free eggs as often, because it's super hard.
I have a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
So when we started the farm, we like we talk about, like we were talking about a little earlier, ideology and your reality, and they have to intersect, you know. And so in the beginning, we wanted everything to be organic, and so we were going to buy organic chicken feed, and but we needed to. I ran the numbers and realized like we needed quite a few hens to like make a business and support our family off. You can't have 200 hens and like live off of that. And so and I needed the farm to like, you know, be my business that I could support my family off of. And so we realized we needed to have several thousand hens. And so I found organic feed. I baked in, I kind of did a pro forma of what that's gonna, how many eggs are they gonna lay, how much feed are they going to eat, what's it going to cost, and we figured all that out. And so I started calling wholesale clients and asking like, what do they pay for eggs? And I realized very quickly, like, I was not going to make any. I was going to lose my ass trying to sell eggs to these people. And one guy is like, well, what are you feeding them? I said, well, certified organic feed. And he's like, well, don't do that. You know, my customers don't care. And so he said, feed the regular feed and I'll buy your eggs at this price. And you know, pasture raised eggs, but they were on. And so in the beginning we had one flock that was corn and soy free, non-GMO fed, and 3 flocks that were on a conventional corn and soy based feed. Okay. And those flocks basically went to wholesale and some to the farmers market, and the others were just like our hardcore customers that had to have the corn and soy. You could pre-order them and get them. Well, you know, we went along for a while, and we've always been conflicted about it, because obviously non-GMO corn and soy free versus, you know, conventionally grown corn and soy is like, our own values are like, well, what's better? And we made the decision. I'm going to give you the long-winded answer. You can just edit it. But we made this is an important conversation because it's been a topic of conversation in the house a lot over the years. And it was like when we decided to run, feed conventional feed to some of the flocks, it was like, well, I've got to make a living. And these wholesale buyers, like every time I gave a grocery store or a restaurant the choice between the non-GMO soy-free eggs at this price or the regular eggs at this price, they always chose the cheaper one.
Sure.
Always. And most retail customers did too, actually. And because the soy-free eggs are more expensive, so we were very conflicted about it. I told my wife, I said, listen, we've got to get, we have to be financially sustainable before we can be anything else. So we ran the business that way for a year or two, and then we reached a point where we were like, you know what? I think we've got enough of a following with the eggs that if we have to go up on price and switch to the corn and soy-free non-GMO feed all the way around, I just am willing to gamble that we're still going to be able to sell all the eggs. And so we made a game plan and we set a date. And we prepared ourselves, and and for the extra cost. And eggs weren't making money yet, so it was like, great. Well, this is definitely not going to get us there, but at least it's we can do this with a good conscience and feel good about everything we're putting out there. It's like, oh, we got the regular eggs, and then there's the soy-free over here. We didn't like that, so we went and made the switch. And I read a book by Yvon Chouinard, founder of Patagonia, called Let My People Go Surfing.
Oh, cool.
It's a great book, but he talks about his own journey with Patagonia and how they made a transition to all organic cotton. And all their capilene, all their synthetic fiber stuff is now made from recycled plastic and recycled fibers. And he talks in that book about his decision to transition Patagonia to all organic cotton because that was really more consistent with their values. And so I drew a lot of parallels between our experience and what I read in his book. It was like, just because you're not doing it that way out of the gates doesn't mean you suck.
Right.
But as you go along, you want to find ways to get your business to be, what you want it to be. And so that was a big one for us. And I would say longer term, we'd love to source all certified organic feeds, but given the current economic, climate, it's been tough to weather that.
But I think it's like this. These are people that you want to support because it doesn't have to be perfect right away. But I think that the fact that you guys are always trying to search for better and just progressing towards that. And that is priority for you, meaning that's what is going to be, ultimately we're going to benefit as the consumer. So I love that.
And being transparent is important. And that's why I tell people, like, even if you don't buy beef from us, just ask questions.
Right.
Because, you need to know exactly what, if you care. I mean, some people are like, not so concerned, but especially people that are doing animal-based and it's really important that there's no seed or seed oils in the food. Like, there could be grass-fed producers using cottonseed, and that doesn't make them a bad person. But if you're on a journey, a nutrition journey that's really important, you're trying to knock out ulcerative colitis or something, you need to know those things.
Right. Yeah, I agree, and I think that it is important to just have those conversations, whether it be at the local farmers markets, or you can reach out to farmers. And I know they're super busy, but emails or phone calls to just kind of understand where their mind is at. And that's why I love Shirttail Creek, because you're animal based, and so you care a lot about your own nutrition, and it shows in how and in your products and what you do. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I know that a lot of people do too as well, especially in the animal-based community. So then, if you're, I guess in your opinion then, not a lot of people can get corn and soy-free eggs, right? It's really hard to find. So in your opinion, what do you think is the best? Is it organic, or is it pasture raised, or like, let's talk about the labels of what they put on that, pasture raised, or just soy free and not corn free, or what in your opinion is the better?
Well, it's so tough because there's so many factors, and it's hard to get them all perfectly in line the way you want. And there are so many reasons for that, right? Like on the farmer side, you know, the reason a lot of egg producers will do soy free but not soy and corn free is because they're tying one hand behind their back when they do that. They're not giving themselves flexibility when supply chain, when things change, or if there's you know, the harvest is not what they thought it was going to be, and so there's a shortage of certain ingredients. That's why they do that. They don't do it because they like are married to corn necessarily, although corn is generally a readily available, cheap commodity. It's not going to be cheap pretty soon. I think it's going to go up to $7 a bushel this year, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But so I would say, in response to your question, which is better? Well,
so if I'm a consumer and I'm going in the store and I'm just like, I don't see corn and soy free, what's the next best step, do you think?
I would choose pasture raised before I would choose just organic, non-pasture raised.
Okay.
Personally, because, you know, you're eating hens that probably, hopefully, were on pasture and had sunlight and were eating bugs and were healthier animals. What was I going to say? I was going to say something about that. Oh, yeah, I mean, the whole food labeling business has gotten really crazy. You know, when I was a kid, my mom would go to like this fancy grocery store in Houston, and she'd get like oatmeal cookies, and she'd say, "Oh, these are the healthy ones. They're organic." And it's like there's this belief like you can eat a cake as long as it's organic. You can just, and as a kid, these are all right. You know, it's like it's still. So I'm organic is definitely good. But it doesn't mean good. Like just because it says organic doesn't mean it's good for you. You know.
I think the intention was there when it was originally labeled as organic. When I was got celiac disease, I had to I could not eat gluten, and so that was 20 years ago. So that was back then where there wasn't any gluten free this and gluten free that. Right. And so once it became popular, I guess more and more people were discovered with the gluten or gluten intolerance or wheat intolerance, then everything on the shelf started to be gluten-free and wheat-free, and then that became the healthier choice, but it was also not, because then when you dive into those ingredient labels, such as like the organics, it's like, well, you're also putting a ton of processed sugars in there and seed oils and all this other crap that's not good for you, so gluten-free wasn't always necessarily the healthier option if you didn't have celiac.
Yeah, food, I mean, we all know this, and probably anybody that watches this is already well aware, but like the people that market and sell food in our country have done a tremendous job of like capitalizing on people's emotions about those things and labeling things in a way that gets them to, you know, that affects their purchasing habits really. But yeah, I mean, I tend to, you know, we obviously buy stuff, like we don't produce dairy on this farm, fruit, all those. I try to source from smaller family-run operations when I can, and when I can't, then you know I try to make sure that the practice is in line. There's a lot of people that'll be sort of certified organic, but really toe the line, and there's a lot of cheating that happens. Just kind of like in sports, you know, it's like you're not supposed to use performance-enhancing drugs, but there are ways to do it and still get by. And I'm not, I mean, but you know, I think the same thing, the same sort of fudging can happen in the food world too.
There's kind of no black and white, like it has to be this way or it's not. There's it can maybe be this way, and then maybe, like, there's just definitely more gray areas. I find.
Or if you're like importing produce from somewhere that's supposed to be certified organic, like, you know, I you know, again, I'm hesitant to like make any claim about anybody or any specifics, but you know, there are cases where a load of cantaloupes or something comes in that's like somebody just threw it to see if the inspector would catch it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that stuff goes on.
I know.
It's
I know.
crazy.
Yeah.
So I guess like maybe going on that too as well, like the labels and the prices have gone up, and there's I guess kind of a war on meat almost. Like, what are your thoughts on all of that?
I think the whole war on meat and this idea of these sort of militant vegans that want to make meat illegal or whatever is. I don't think it holds water. I don't think it could really happen. And maybe I'm just being flippant about it, but it's just ingrained in who we are as humans. And certain people don't want to eat meat, great, but it's undeniable that you cannot beat the nutritional density and bioavailability of what's in meat. And
maybe Canada has something else to say about that, though. If they are putting a warning label on their meat. So
is that happening?
I don't know if it's like truly happening, but that's in discussion.
There's a lot of crazy stuff going on in Canada.
Yeah.
But yeah, what I'm seeing that I think is really promising is, the animal-based movement, and I love that it's not. There's a lot of like diets, and I've never been one for diets. Like I've never done a diet before. Yeah. And people, my mother-in-law will come visit and she'll be like, "Oh, can you have this rice?" I'm like, "I can have whatever I want. I just like, frankly, if I eat the piece of meat, I'm pretty happy with that, and that's all I need."
Yeah.
But I think animal-based is not exclusive in that it doesn't it's not saying, hey, you can't eat some vegetable if you want or some whatever. It's just here's the best, and that's what Paul's done a great job with his content of like talking about, hey, if it's working for you, great, but like here's the least toxic plant. This is the best direction to go in, as opposed to you're a piece of shit if you or eat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we always try to. There's a way, I guess, to say it and to try to let people know that sure, like if you can be super dogmatic about it or just super aggressive with it, or here's another way to do it, to approach it. We always want to give the option of like the best of the best if you're wanting to shoot for that, but maybe we need to also be better too at just being like, okay,
not everybody's gonna go hard line.
Right. So I appreciate that. So when did you, I guess, just maybe some closing questions as far as animal-based goes. When did you go animal-based?
About 8 months ago.
8 months. And do you love it, and how do you feel on it? Or?
Feel great. I mean, I was pretty fit before we moved to the farm, and like I told you, we moved out here. I was building fence and doing stuff, and working constantly, and started eating kind of crappy and drinking more than I should, and just gained like a little over 20 pounds, and it just started feeling gross. And I was like, this is bullshit. But the lifestyle we had was like 14 hours a day gunning. I spent 2 years building chicken houses. We spent a summer rebuilding all the corrals, and it's like, and everything was like, oh my god, I got to get this chicken house done before this new flock comes in, and so I can get the egg production, so I can meet this order from this grocery store or whatever. So it was all time sensitive stuff, and all that went to the wayside. And so I took an interest in animal-based when I, found out about, Paul and his content and what he was doing, and read some of his stuff. Actually, one of the best interviews of his that I heard was on, is it Marcus Aubrey or Aubrey Marcus?
Aubrey Marcus.
On that podcast, he did one of the greatest presentations of what animal-based is, and they asked him all the gotcha questions, and he addressed them all so well. I sent it to like 10 people. I was like, dude, maybe there's something to this stuff, But I mean, the big catalyst for me finally deciding to like cut out the bullshit and really be disciplined about it is because I have Paradon Disease, and I wanted to try to address that, and we've seen good results. So
that's awesome. Cool. And you're still going strong. So, and then you have a wife and a family. How would you say, are they on animal-based, or what's their status?
My wife, as you know, she likes sourdough bread and pasta and vegetables, and that's fine. And she's kicking ass and feeling good, and it's working for her. I definitely like push the kids, like they'll the meat and organs I feed them the caveman blend, and my son will just chow down on a beef heart, loves it. So
Does he eat it raw or is it grilled?
We grill it. Yeah, we do. We don't do the raw thing too much, but I think there's a little bit of both, and it's tough because they go to school, they eat lunch at school, and my wife packs lunch a lot of times, but it's like, I'm not going to tell my son he can't have a piece of pizza.
Sure.
But I am not going to keep a bunch of garbage in our house.
Right.
And if we drink a Coke, it's like a treat.
Yeah.
If he wants to get a Coke, on a special, when we go out to eat on a Sunday or something. So my kids can figure their own stuff out. I'm going to set an example for them. But yeah, we haven't been like hardline, but definitely like limiting refined sugars and seed oils, and in making sure that there's meat and fruit in their diet has been really important. And I make breakfast every morning, so there's like eggs and fruit.
Nice. Can I come over tomorrow?
Yeah.
Join you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So then where can we find Shirttail Creek Farm meats, and can we order online? And I know you just opened up a shop too, so you can tell them all about that.
You can order on our website, shirttailcreekfarm.com. We ship within Texas, and we offer home delivery in Houston, San Antonio, Austin for bulk beef, people that want to fill the freezer with a whole half or quarter beef.
Yeah.
And you can get our eggs at a bunch of stores in Austin, at the farmers markets. We're there every week in Austin.
Super good. Yeah.
And then our new shop, Local Pastures in Austin, which we opened with our friends at Bellevue Farm.
Cool.
It's on Altorf, and it's stocked with all of our stuff and all of their pastured pork and pastured duck and eggs and everything. So yeah, we're trying to just bridge the gap and make it easier for people to source from our farms. And,
super good.
Yeah.
And if you see me before you in the line of getting these eggs, maybe you might not get to them, but they're super good and super delicious. And then I know you started to give some of your beef to restaurants. So what restaurants do you?
The only restaurant that is consistently buying our beef is Eastside Pies.
Okay.
It's a pizza place in Austin that uses our beef for their meatballs. The rest of our beef is mostly sold to retail consumers directly, or through farmhouse delivery, which is another big service that delivers to your house.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. Well, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that was great. So hope you guys enjoyed listening to this and just getting a little piece of farm life from the actual farmer.